Good evening. Hello, welcome to the third episode of Broadsheet on the Telly. My name is John Preposterous Ryan, and that's not my dog, but it's one of our panel's dogs. Joining us tonight on Broadsheet on the Telly is our producer Mike McGrath Bryan, Conor McKeown in Ranelagh, Johnny Keenan, who is in Kilkenny, Marcel Kruger, Germany born but Dundalk based, and Neil Curran, who's in Leopardstown, and a new guest who will hopefully introduce herself. It's Caroline McAvoy, and she contacted us at the weekend. Caroline, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, okay. So I'm a postdoc researcher in UCD in the School of Politics and International Relations, and a long-time Broadsheet reader, and just really saw what you did in the first 2 episodes of this and just wanted to pitch in.
Great. Well, you're very welcome. Olga Cronin from the Sheet is going to join us in about 10-15 minutes to go through some of the intricacies of the McCabe story. But first, Mike is going to share tomorrow's papers, which have just gone up on Broadsheet. Mike?
Circle of Technology. One moment, please. You can see it there?
Yep. Okay, if you just want to flick through those.
Sure,
Mike.
just. Yeah, I'm. There we go. Perfect.
Okay. Okay, no amnesties for UK troops in trouble, says Flanagan. This is the cover of the Times Ireland edition. Storm Doris is making the front page photograph there. How is Doris in your area, by the way, Johnny?
Yeah, well, as you said there, John, I'm in Kilkenny, which everyone knows the sunny southeast, so it's calm enough, thankfully.
Great, Marcel. What's the verdict in Dundalk?
There were about 4 bins blown over.
Oh my God. Neil, how are things in Leopardstown?
Oh, I had the barbecue cover half blow off, and the barbecue got wet. So I'm going to start a funder campaign to try and get it back polished up to scratch.
Okay. Oh, and welcome to Olga, who's just joined us. Inner City, Dublin. Olga, how's Doris there? Olga, who we had some mic issues with last week, has still got those mic issues. We'll just go to.
Happy to hear you.
And Caroline, how is Doris in your neighbourhood?
Not so bad actually. Like, it's been rainy, and that's kind of about it, really. I wish I had anything as dramatic to say as, like, 4 bins being knocked over, but
yeah,
no such luck.
Rainy's pretty interesting. Oh, Conor, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Conor, we have Conor McKeown.
Yeah, I'm struggling. I'll come back.
Okay. Conor's got a haircut, so he's struggling at the moment. Okay, just go back to the
source of his powers.
Just go back to. Sorry, Mike. Just go back to the front tomorrow's covers if you can.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm not sure that is Conor. He looks like a completely different person. Okay, so
Murphy's Law with technology, folks. Hold on.
No problem. There's Marcel. Okay. Okay, the Irish Times. Okay. Caroline, as a.
Can you hear me now?
Olga, we can. Hello. Welcome. And we've lost Neil Curran. Sorry, this is a Doris-related communication breakdown. Caroline, perhaps you could, as a director of political, as a Bothan in this area of European politics, perhaps you could explain what Enda Kenny is calling for in tomorrow's Irish Times.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, like, he's trying to avert, the return to borders between the Republic and the North, and like it makes a lot of sense that this is what he's asking for. kind of a sort of a straightforward thing to ask for as the negotiations start. So, Article 50 is expected to be triggered imminently, really, and there are negotiations then sort of being set up to. There's an advisor, I can't remember his name now. Just it escapes me, but he's been put as sort of the Brexit advisor, the Brexit sort of negotiator, and Kenny is obviously sort of getting his words in now, to kind of say what will be priority for Ireland and what will have to be respected. So it makes a lot of sense, right? That this is what he would sort of go for. Now, I guess the big question is whether or not he will be the person doing the negotiations. That will he be at the helm at that stage, which is kind of anyone's guess, but it seems like he's kind of making our interests clear pretty early on. So that's.
What do you think of our strategy, Caroline? Ireland's strategy so far?
It's a little hard to say. I think what we're doing in terms of strategy. I guess the two big things for us is really, what happens with the borders and making sure, that the peace agreement stays in place and that, we don't sort of go back to, 2-3 decades, that we don't go sort of back that way. But also then the second thing being what will our relations be in terms of economic trade with Britain? That's going to be a massive issue as well. And those are the two sort of big ticket items for us. And so far that seems to be, what at least sort of Penny is kind of prioritizing. And he's trying, it's clear that he's sort of trying to sort of make friends. I think I only briefly sort of read the article there, but that, it was that he was trying to, really kind of emphasize his relationship with Juncker and, how sort of, close ties he would have with Brussels. And, maybe that's kind of the wise move at this stage.
Okay. It's the hard Brexit or whatever, the soft Brexit, either way, isn't it inevitable that we will be exiting in a matter of, I don't know, 10 years, say?
I don't know if that's really true. There's not really the appetite for it here that there is in the UK.
No.
One of the things about, the UK's Brexit is that it has always been the kind of enfant terrible of the EU. It's always been the outlier in a lot of, the serious negotiations to do with the EU and different relationship. Especially in the early days, we benefited an awful lot. So I don't think there's the same kind of appetite for it. Can we look 10 years down the road? I don't know. The way the world is at the moment, I really don't know. But yeah, certainly I would argue that the EU itself has to change, it has to adapt to these kind of, this kind of new reality where member states can leave. And that's kind of, I think that's something that wasn't really envisaged ever until it happened. It was prior to Lisbon, there wasn't really a mechanism for leaving. And Article 50 is actually really sparse on details of how to leave. Right. This is kind of a new reality that we sort of have to. It's kind of a wait and see, really. But at the moment, I wouldn't really see Ireland leaving anytime soon.
Just Marcel, as you're from Germany, any thoughts on this?
No, I'm a big. I wouldn't say fan, but I like the European idea and the European project, and I'm benefiting from it personally because I'm here working without visa or anything. So, but that's really interesting what Caroline was saying, because I think a couple of weeks back there was this discussion about Ireland being the only country in case of Brexit having the external border of the EU with the UK. So, and that regardless of whatever May and Emma were discussing when Theresa May was over, that they will not go back and so on. When the EU says, look, guys, you are the external border of the EU, we will have a hard border based on that. So I think that's really interesting, what in the end this will mean for Ireland specifically.
Yeah, Johnny? Have we lost him?
I like to look at things through logic and peaceful means. So if you break it down, the EU is a bureaucratic state that's not elected by any countries. And as far as I'm aware, Northern Ireland voted in favour. Forget about Britain, but Northern Ireland and Scotland, I think, voted in favour to remain. So if you look at the actual borders, and if the EU, European Union is all about taking down borders, maybe they should take an example that we don't need to go back to those borders in Ireland, on the island of Ireland, and look at it from a logical and simple way instead of putting bureaucratic borders up.
Mm-hmm. Actually, can I just jump in?
Sure, please.
Yeah, because that's actually just an interesting kind of point, because I think one of the issues that Kenny was raising was that within whatever the negotiations were, that they wanted to open, they wanted to have basically a clause in it that if ever there was to be a united Ireland, and that if the North ever wanted to be part of a united Ireland, that it would be able to be part of the EU again, and that it would be able to do so quite easily. And I think that's quite a statement in a way, that they want that sort of in there, that it opens, not that it would necessarily ever happen, but that it opens up the possibility of it happening. I think that's really an interesting development.
Yeah.
Also there, Caroline, on what John, you said in relation to 10 years would Ireland be out of Europe. I don't think if with the election that's going to happen in France, I think Le Pen, unfortunately, if she was to get in, she wants to take France out of Europe. So I think that would be the demise of Europe, really, as we know it.
Yeah, I can't see it recovering from that. Johnny, there's something wrong with your camera, by the way. Connor, are you back with us?
Okay,
we lost. It's very, very sorry. These are all apparently Doris-related connection breakdowns. So it's sort of out of our hands. Olga, I just wanted to ask you, I just wanted to sort of briefly get back to the McCabe story that we were covering last week. And one of the things that we mentioned was that the leadership battle, the Fine Gael leadership battle, seemed to be a distraction from the uglier aspects of the McCabe story. And I noticed that we were all distracted by the Fine Gael leadership battle over the last week, and didn't really get into the nitty-gritty of the McCabe situation. I know that Fitch O'Toole wrote at the weekend that this was our worst scandal yet, but it wasn't reflected in any of the news coverage. I felt certainly over the weekend. In tomorrow's Examiner, there's a report from the policing authority today where the police or the Gardaí were critical of the media coverage, and that they weren't getting a rounded picture. What do you think of that, Tanya?
I think I'm not sure. Is it because it's such a it's a complex story? I'm not sure if that's why. That's the reason for maybe the kind of distraction, or the fact, I suppose, that a tribunal has been called now kind of allows people to kind of shelve it as well. Gives it that reason. But there were interesting pieces during the week, though. Conor Lally had a piece in the Irish Times in which he interviewed the girl at the centre of the allegations.
This is the woman, the girl, now woman, who had made the initial allegation that Tusla then had earnestly copy and paste or added to. Yeah.
I thought it was interesting going back, because I was looking at it, and I thought it was interesting that there was two situations where there are questions as to, and I guess this is what the tribunal was supposed to find out, okay, who knew what when and everything. But it was interesting that we know of two things have been reported, but they haven't been fleshed out. And I guess, okay, that's what the tribunal is going to flesh out. But they were told that when the councillor notified Tusla of the serious allegation, so this is the digital penetration, the additional allegation in 2013.
The copy and pasted.
Yeah, but this is before they knew that it was an error. This is when, so the councillor contacted Tusla to say that this that there was a serious allegation against McCabe. And we know that the social worker, the original investigating Garda from the 2006 allegation, the original allegation that went to the DPP was thrown out. So all we know is that what's been reported rather is that the TUSLA social worker did contact the original investigating Garda to request a meeting, and we don't know anything about that. We don't know if it took place. We don't know. And then we also know that after the error was discovered, we just know that there was an email sent following some sort of a call, and that she believed that this local superintendent of the relevant district hadn't been made aware that it was an error, and that this superintendent was supposed to have a meeting with the Garda Commissioner over it. Now, the Garda Commissioner came out and said no meeting took place, and that there was no request for such a meeting. But I just think it's really interesting that there was those two situations that are just very grey. We don't know what happened or exactly. And like I said, okay, the Tribune is going to find that out. But those two things are important things to, I think, maybe focus on, media-wise, I guess.
Yeah. Sorry.
But and I suppose obviously the Conor Lally piece was interesting. It was just a piece solely with the girl. But I think timeline-wise, I think it's interesting. If I could briefly, I don't want to bore everyone and go back over the whole thing. But so we know the allegation was made in 2006 and it was thrown out. And then we know that 7 years later, August 2013, the councillor contacted TUSLA to say that she'd spoken with a client who was this girl used by McCabe during her childhood. And this was when the error was made, which we now know to be an error, which people weren't aware of apparently at the time. And then we know that the councillor notified TUSLA, and that a TUSLA social worker apparently tried to contact the original Garda, like I just explained. We know that then a formal Garda notification form setting out the detail of the allegation wasn't sent to the superintendent until May 2nd. So May 2nd, 2014. And that was a month or several weeks after TUSLA opened files into his own children. So May 2014 is the month that I think has everyone a little bit confused, because we just don't know who or what happened. So let's say Katie Hannon last week reported that according to the girl's solicitor, the guards were made aware of the error May 4th or 5th. But then Katie Hannon said that according to the TUSLA file, TUSLA was contacted by the councillor on May 14th, and then they contacted the guards 1 or 2 days after that. So it's a bit wishy-washy. And also, you also have to take into consideration that so you think about, okay, what happened between August 2013 and May 2014? On April 12th, April 15th, and May 5th, there were 3 articles in the Irish Independent written by Paul Williams. And all these 3 articles were in relation to this girl. Now, he didn't name Maurice McCabe, but now we know that it was Maurice McCabe. And the 3 articles were about the girl, and she was talking about this allegation from 2006, and she wasn't happy with how it was dealt with. She claimed that there was a cover-up, and it was brushed under the carpet. And some things that she said to Paul Williams, which was reported in April. On April 12th, she said that the investigation was flawed, it was a farce, that the complaint and subsequent investigation were never recorded in the Garda Pulse, which should have happened. And basically, she was calling for the allegations to be reopened and to be looked at in a similar fashion to how Sean Guerin was looking into the dossier of allegations that he had given to Micheál Martin. The girl also wanted a meeting with Micheál Martin, Fianna Fáil leader, and she also said she was getting legal advice about taking a civil case against the Garda authorities and her attacker. She's alleging. Alleged, yeah. And then on April 15th, he wrote another piece, and basically it said that there was going to be the contact had been made with Micheál Martin's office, and that she was still awaiting a response. And then on May 5th, so now if you remember, Katie Hannon reported last week in primetime that she quoted the girl's solicitor saying that the guards were made aware of the error by May 4th or 5th. But this article on May 5th, 2014, Paul Williams reported that Micheál Martin had had an hour-long meeting with the girl on the previous Wednesday, which was April 30th. And that following the meeting, Micheál Martin wrote to Enda Kenny, and that Enda Kenny was expected to order investigation into allegations that this young woman was making. So then there was the piece in the Irish Times this week by Conor Lally, and
there's an interview with the girl.
Yeah, sorry. And so he reported that the girl was encouraged by her mother to speak to a HSC counsellor in 2013 because she was suffering from anxiety and depression. That she spoke about the 2006 allegation, but only when she was asked to.
Yeah.
Which I kind of wasn't sure how, but that's what.
Yes.
And this is.
Sorry. And the counsellor said that they have to refer it. She had to refer it.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what she said. The girl, these are her quotes. When she was taking it down, she said something. I don't know her exact words. She said she'll have to refer this on. I remember straight away it got my back up. I was thinking, refer what on? This has been reported, this has been investigated, and the DPP said insufficient evidence. That's that. There's nothing going to change. I have accepted that. I remember coming out of the counselling session. And I was more annoyed than when I went in. I remember thinking, stirring up shit for what? I knew by her she was going to report it whether I wanted to or not.
Right. Would she have been legally obliged to, or would it have been compulsory for her to have reported it? Referred it on, I assume.
Yeah, but I guess, you know, if at this point they're only talking about the 2006 allegation that had already been investigated and thrown out.
And this was raised by the counsellor? Yeah.
I think there was, if I remember this correctly, anyone else can correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I'm aware, Michael Clifford wrote a piece the following day, and yes, she did say to her that it was the 2006 allegation. She made it clear that it had been done and dusted. The girl made this clear to the counsellor.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Olga. Sorry to the panel for focusing. But if we can stick with it and maybe sort of tease it out over the next few weeks, Olga, we can sort of probably make more sense of it. But it does seem that.
Well, it's just a timeline. The timeline it's just conflicting. You know, it's just.
Well, Paul Williams seems to have been appraised of information that nobody else had, particularly the authorities, presumably. Anyway.
Well, we also know, according to Superintendent Dave Taylor, who is the former Garda Press Office, who has made the protected disclosure saying that, you know, there was a smear campaign and he was part of it, and he was instructed by Martin Callanan, and Noreen O'Sullivan was aware of it, or they were both aware of it either way, and that there were texts going around that Paul Williams was in the house of this girl in early 2014. So, I mean, perhaps she contacted him. We don't know, you know. But
okay. Thanks, Olga. Neil, did you have any views on this story? Have you been following it over the last week?
Well, it's been hard to follow it because it's been, you know, it's been totally distracted by the whole who's going to be the leader of the country. I mean, here we are at 12:10 on a middle of a Thursday night, and we're finding out more about this and get Brian brought up to speed by the wonderful Olga, you know, because we're not, you know, we're seeing bits and bobs during the week, but we're not really, focus has been completely taken away. And as Olga mentioned, now we have a tribunal which makes everyone's eyes glaze over because this is going to drag on for years. And at the end of it, there'll be a report. And at that stage, we'll have a new leaders, people will have moved on, and, you know, who knows. So yeah, it's incredibly frustrating and embarrassing, and it's what's driven me mad so much this week is that this whole will he won't he with Enda Kenny, which, you know, the guy has to go. You know what he did in the Dáil was unacceptable. He's the leader of our country at one of the most critical points in our country's history since we became a state, and he's still there. And I just think it's unbelievable. It's descended into something that, you know, Spitting Image would have covered in the 80s. But full credit to Broadsheet and Olga, and people that are still keeping this on the agenda in whatever way we can, because this is just a horrible. It continues to get farcical.
Yeah.
I think just to say, I mean, the coverage-wise, like there were good pieces in the weekend and Sunday paper. Like in the Business Post, Tom Lyons had a piece about how the law firm in Belfast, KRW, I hope I'm getting that right, it's a human rights law firm in Belfast, and it's taking, 20 cases, miscarriage of justice cases against the state. Mary Regan had a piece about how TUSLA never notified the Data Protection Commissioner in regards to the error once it became aware. That,
It's off the front page though, and
Well, they were. Well, the miscarriage of justice one was, but and also John Mooney did have a story. Like, I'm not trying to defend him, but John Mooney had a story in the Sunday Times where he basically said that it was, if I remember correctly, Noreen O'Sullivan, like the decision was made to let TUSLA decide whether or not to tell McCabe about the allegation. So, so you have to stand back and go, okay, well, why did the commissioner make that decision not to inform McCabe that this had happened? Why leave it up to TUSLA? So I think everyone's just trying to grab bits and get bits, and then because of the tribunal, I don't know. But
yeah, well, it still seems amazing that she can that Commissioner Noreen O'Sullivan can actually stay on. It seems anyway. I imagine it won't. I imagine she will have to leave at some point soon.
I can't see it not happening personally. Not that I'm no expert, but I can't see it not happening. And there are, is it six former and current guards who were suing the state, and that surely will only embolden more who feel they have a case. That's not me to say if there are more cases, but if it's a case that what happened to Maurice McCabe is something similar that happened to Keith Harrison, because another. He claims that his partner was pressurising to make a false claim against him that involved TUSLA. So, I guess, again, it goes back to the tribunal, right? So they're going to try and find out what patterns, if there were any patterns. And so,
it kind of feels she may not go until we have a change, until Kenny steps down and we have someone else in there. Maybe that'll be the opportunity that, will be taken, because, again, the focus isn't on her so much anymore.
Yeah, but it does raise the question of who's in charge. Really, it looks like they can't really ask her to leave. She's impregnable in a sense that I feel. I mean, I'm sure politicians are compromised at all levels, but I mean, they won't do what's the most obvious and natural thing to do, and that sort of. That makes me.
Well, that's the thing, John. They did it before. Shatter and Callanan had to step down, so maybe they're being resilient that they're not going to step down this time around.
Right.
That could be a factor.
Well, of the evidence so far, or the evidence that I've seen, it would seem a more serious matter than even the Callanan Shatter. The reason given for that. Caroline.
Actually, what I was just thinking of is that it's, I think you're right that kind of people are rolling their eyes at another tribunal, because like it is another tribunal, and it seems that it doesn't, like, the tribunals will identify problems that there are, but they don't necessarily solve the problems. And I think that, kind of infuriates people when they sort of, whether or not even like a commissioner steps down and puts another in their place. I mean, like, there are clear systematic problems, right? And they don't necessarily get resolved by, replacing one commissioner with another who is already a part of that system. I mean, maybe that's the issue. That something has to be done at that level where you nearly have an outsider come in, and I mean, I don't even know how that would work, but maybe that's kind of something that needs to happen, rather than, just another tribunal that, like you said, takes 10 years and a lot of paperwork and comes up with things that we essentially on already?
I think the tribunal. I think a lot of people are, they obviously hate tribunals. Money, time, and what happens in the end, and who's is there any accountability? But I think after what we apparently know what happened with the, let's say, the O'Higgins Commission of Investigation, where efforts were made we're told to discredit Maurice McCabe. I think the fact that this is just going to be in public is key, like more so than, well, I don't know, they're equally, I'm sure, as important, but I definitely feel for this in the sense of the guards. Okay, we had the Maurice Tribunal.
But we had the Maurice Tribunal, the Semitic Tribunal as well, that our legal expert, legal coffee drinker wrote today, our legal expert as opposed to our lawyer who's in rehab, so they're two different legal coffee drinker. She wrote about former Supreme Court Judge Adrian Hardiman, who died last year. He made a judgment in 2015 at the close of a case the Supreme Court heard about evidence, whether, anyway, the case itself is not important, but his assessment of the guards was really pretty damning, and he gives all the evidence of what happened at the tribunal. Was Smithick, the Fred Morris Tribunal, the Morris Tribunal into the McBurty stuff, and it's I mean, you can almost anticipate how the end of the McCabe Tribunal or whatever will end, and the recommendations presumably will just be ignored again. But so it's probably not going to be good enough.
I think he put it as in the piece that he wrote. I think that he said that it can't be put down to just a few bad apples, which it often tends to. I think in these instances that they go, oh, it's just a few rogue individuals acting, not in the manner, and and that, and his argument is that, well, actually no, it's systemic, and I think that's really telling.
Yeah, but no politician, or certainly nobody in Fine Gael or Fine Gael seems to have the. Well, I mean, that would be an interesting vision for a new leader, wouldn't it? I just can't be excited about the Fine Gael leadership campaign, because I think while they're very different candidates, they're uninteresting in different ways, in their own little and special way. I mean, there's what we've seen over the last week is people trying to whip up interest in, Leo, Simon, and whatever, and it's not really working. I don't know. Is it working for you, Marcel, as a foreigner?
No, not really. And I'm always a little amused because I look at it from the outside, and as you are all rightly pointing out, I think, especially in connection with the guards, it's like the whole thing is Enda becoming the fall guy also for the whole thing that was going on with the McCabe story. But then, the internal structures of Agada Shirana and, the leadership, it will stay in place. So it's like nothing sticking to them, because the leader of the state, after he goes over to Trump and hands over that bloody shamrock, he will take the fall for that. But it does not feel to me, looking at it from the outside, as if they would have, any intention of changing their structures. Why? It has worked in the past, and then we'll just get a new leader and on it goes.
Yeah. Okay. Mike. Mike.
Yep.
You're very, very quiet this week.
I take correction.
Mike got a bit of criticism for going on a bit last week. I thought you were very good. I thought this accent, but
Yeah, but brevity is the key to these things, I would say. If we're talking,
I just need to say that the way we're doing the show tonight is now going to be changed for next week. It's going to be a sort of slicker affair, isn't it, Mike?
We're currently talking with production studio here in Cork. Over the next week or two, there should be changes. Again, there'll be more detail about this revealed through the website in the coming weeks, so on and so forth. Suffice to say, the Murphy's Law feel that Broadsheet on the Telly currently possesses is going to be a bit more refined. But you know, these things take time and they take negotiation. So yes, we will have more information.
Are we getting makeup, Mike?
You're more than welcome to try some on yourself. But I don't think it's in the budget at the minute. We asked John.
One of the problems with the screen share system is that, you know, obviously it's too slow to have a look at tomorrow's papers because it's crawling up, but also we can't watch videos. And Broadsheet comments are bad at memes sent in fantastic video animation, which we were hoping to play at the beginning of the show, and we did a part 2, which we're going to play at the end, but they were so slow that we can't. So
yeah,
we're going to play them on the site and have them up as kind of idents or whatever for next week. And also I want to thank Sam Fitzpatrick, who did our ident, our 80s style Broadsheet on the Telly ident. Sorry, Neil?
I'm here, yeah.
Yeah, I want to come back to you because you looked a bit lonely there. But have you been, over the last week, have you noticed that it was a deliberate attempt, the Fine Gael thing, it was almost like filibustering, you know, in Parliament, where they talk out a subject and, oh, well, that's last week's news. And I think Terry Prone has a rule that if you're on the front page 3 days in a row, you're in trouble, you know. All these, I felt a lot of spin was being activated behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, and every time I found myself getting sucked in, because, you know, a lot of TDs were on radio shows and TV shows, you know, and the whole thing of pushing them on, do they want the job? And every time I got sucked into it, there was then that alarm went off my head of guilt, going, no, this is now distracting me from where this all came about. And it's just terrible. Like, this has happened with previous governments with different parties. It just feels like it's, you know, we're repeating the same thing over and over. And I'm not liking the look of who we have in the running here. I mean, as Marcel said, like we have this Trump, we have the passing of the Shamrock, which, by the way, I think the passing of the Shamrock is a fantastic thing, not because of the hoity-hoity diddly of it, but the symbolic thing. You know, I've been in parts of the world for Paddy's Week over the years, and you know, to see Ireland celebrated like that, like there's no other country can make that claim. I don't even think the US can make that claim about the 4th of July. So, you know, it is quite symbolic. But you know, he's definitely going to be the fall guy, no matter how that goes. You know, I think Leo and Simon are pretty pleased that they don't have to be the one taking that trip. But I might be wrong in saying this. I think it was Regina Doherty, though, has been going on, even though Enda has mapped out his strategy of getting out of the hot seat, that she wants him to be at the table negotiating as part of the Brexit negotiations. And I don't know if, as an Irish person, if I'm comfortable with that, given that all that's gone on. So we've got some interesting times ahead. And just getting back to the Brexit thing, I dropped off there for a second. But my view on Brexit and the handling of it is that we have to have a hard Brexit, and we need someone who can negotiate for Ireland on our behalf. And that, you know, I kind of waving the flag that says we're going to have a hard border, because, you know, if Britain gets out of Europe and gets out on their terms, that's going to be far worse for Ireland. You know, if we've got this thing now, if Theresa May is going to lower corporate tax rates, Trump's administration Trump has said now he's going to have his tax regime finalized by August. So if we've got both countries either side of the pond, either side of us, with low corporate tax rates, and we get this soft Brexit, you know, we're going to be back to the days of agriculture and tourism, as far as I can see. And maybe that's a bit conspiracy theorist, I don't know, but.
How bad would that be, Neil?
That would be very bad. As someone who works in the industry that relies on foreign direct investment, I mean, I've been watching how London has been reacting, you know, particularly the financial sector, because a lot of banks are saying, oh, we need to get out of Dodge and we need to set up in the EU, and Barclays are talking and all this. But when you drill into the detail, they're not talking about closing down Barclays in London and relocating to Dublin. Milan, and I think Frankfurt are the cities that are being touted. So it's not like, because one of the things that the politicians have been saying is, come to Ireland, Brexit will happen, come to Ireland, we're the only English speaking country in Europe. That's all bullshit, because as we all know, as Irish people, we have a lot of immigrants in Ireland who are multilingual. So that is not a massive plus as we may think. So, we've got a tough road ahead of us, and we need to have our shit together, quite frankly. So, this whole McCabe scandal, what's happening right now, this is the worst. Like I said, this is one of the most important crossroads our country has been at since the founding of the state, in my humble opinion.
Well, I think the Times requires a radical visionary leader of some kind, and I certainly don't see him among Leo and Simon and whatnot, to be perfectly honest. I mean, it really is a time for kind of radical vision. There is a possibility, like you say, we've got to reinvent Ireland in a way.
Yeah, definitely.
And also rebrand it, because we're irrespective of what Ed Kenny says, we are seen as a tax haven. We're looked down upon in that regard, and
neutral on the side that's winning.
We'll involuntarily lose that status with Trump, but we're going to have to think of something for our next act.
And even as a panel here, who in politics from any party would you see as, a key person to represent Ireland at that negotiating table? Who would you have confidence in?
Well, for pure negotiating abilities, I'd say Sinn Féin would be. They're practiced at this art of, talk, and getting sort of, this game of inches. But it's a very, very, very good question, Marcel. Marcel?
The thing is, in that connection, looking at the whole Apple thing, so there's like 13 billion euros out there theoretically, and you could give it to Bus Aaron and the nurses and so on, so they wouldn't need to go on strike. But they're all saying no, as long as we have the big companies here, everything is fine. As long just get them in. And I think that will be the same position for any current politician out there at the moment when it comes to Brexit. Just don't touch our corporate tax. Just so there's no one with the proper vision. And look at the housing problems as well, and the homelessness. Just thinking like if all the banks, and that's for me specifically as an outsider in Germany, where the majority of people is renting out and not buying. I was thinking like if all the banks come into Dublin, where are the people going to live? So like.
Neil, like that is a very good point. Where the hell are they going to live?
Oh, well, yeah. We'll have to set up camps, I think, in Longford or Leitrim or something for people to live in. Or Johnny, down your neck of the woods. But on the Apple thing as well.
Decentralisation would be great. Take a few jobs out of Dublin. It'd be grand, because we all pay the same amount, don't we?
Well, Biffo tried it. Biffo tried it before and it worked, didn't it?
Johnny, one second, we've lost.
Biffo didn't do anything for Biffo land, I'm afraid to say.
Johnny, we've lost your picture, by the way.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know what to do about that, John. Can you hear me?
Okay, no. I think maybe the volume on the curtains was a bit high.
But just to Marcel, your point about Apple, and I'm somewhat conflicted about this. We have this 13 billion, which is a huge number, and we all know the benefits it would have. But the question you'd ask yourself, though, is if we didn't, if Apple were, have to pay that, and then, or if they had to pay that from the get-go, would they have invested in Ireland? How many jobs directly and indirectly would have been affected by that? If you take a county Waterford. There's been a number of companies that closed down in Waterford, and I remember I knew a few people who worked for, I think it was Telly 2 was a telecoms company in Waterford a few years ago, and the impact from direct and not just direct jobs but indirect jobs as well. And there's fewer and fewer big companies down in Waterford, taking that as an example. you take Apple out of Cork. I'm not saying that it would have happened if they've had to pay that level of tax from the start, but you've got to add these up, direct employment, indirect employment, what it does for the local economy. And one of the challenges we have in Ireland is that Dublin is where everything goes. Dublin is where, most businesses are, most of employment is, and, there's plenty of counties that get neglected. So if you're taking out foreign direct investment, it's only going to get worse. But I don't know what the answer to that is.
Caroline, who should lead? Sorry,
I was just going to say though, like on that, like I think the stance that certainly like the kind of the stance that the government was taking on the Apple thing, that it wasn't just an issue of that they're denying any wrongdoing or anything like that, but it's also kind of a question of sovereignty and standing up to the Commission. So there is kind of a question over the line that is drawn between what is an EU level competence in terms of what they can say and do, right? And in terms of what Ireland is and what Ireland can say and do in terms of those laws. And as far as the sort of the government stance seemed to be that over that line. So that, whilst a lot of people, and like understandably, you kind of go 13 billion, what couldn't we do with 13 billion? But at the same time, there is that, it's a horrible position to sort of for the leadership to have to be in, to kind of say, well, if we don't take this money, then everyone's going to say, why aren't we taking this money? We could do with it. And then if we do take the money, then what does that mean for the future of things like foreign direct investment and the relationship to these actors in the EU? And it's really it's a horrible position to be in. And to know what
the argument
is a question.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think the argument has already been won effectively. I mean, the companies will be offered tempting returns to go back to America, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
They've shown their loyalty. They have no loyalty to Ireland. I mean, if they want to lose 500 jobs, they'll just do it like that. They won't get a 24-hour warning. They're told on the radio, the staff. So why are we so loyal to Apple? I know they've been there 30 years, but it's only 30 years. It's not.
Yeah. No. I mean, I agree. Like, I mean, and I think this is why it's so difficult, because you kind of want, like, I mean, prior to sort of Trump getting in, I suppose it was a different question, because kind of, active. There were kind of questions over Apple and that money going back to the US, but it wasn't quite so stark and put in quite such stark terms. And now that it is, it almost sort of changes the relationship of, is there anything that Ireland can do to keep those companies here beyond saying we're the only English-speaking country in the EU, and and come and work with us? Like, I mean, it is kind of an interesting question. I mean, I guess we won't really see we won't really know unless and until we see those companies actually move back to the US, because there is kind of, I mean, certainly I can't remember exact companies, but I know I heard this, that it's not so, like, for some companies it's easy just to kind of remove the jobs and that's it, but that for a lot of companies it's not quite so easy to just pack up and leave. That it takes an awful lot of work to actually sort of move back. So question for the company, and that they might not be quite so eager to go back just because, Trump says so.
I think, yeah, it's an interesting point. Take American investment in Ireland, just to put some figures on it. The last time I saw figures on the level of employment through American companies in Ireland, it was in the region of 100,000 to 110,000 people directly employed. And you're absolutely right, Caroline. Like, there's a lot of companies that operate in Ireland and they merely have a plaque on the wall, or their registered offices, their solicitor, and they've got a skeleton crew here and all that. But there are the big companies. But we saw what happened with Dell. We've seen, historically how quickly those decisions can be taken, and Eastern Europe and Singapore, India, these places are very, very attractive. Now, some, industry specific, I guess, in some cases, but at the end of the day, money talks. Oh God, I can't believe I said that. But you know, business is business, and you know, companies will do whatever it takes to please the shareholders. So, and come back to what you said, John. We have to reinvent ourselves as a country.
Yeah, Johnny.
Yeah, definitely. Can you see me, hear me, all that jazz?
Can't see, I'm afraid, Johnny.
We can hear you, but
Okay.
sadly we can't see you, Johnny. Sorry.
Okay, that's grand.
You talk about it.
What Neil was saying there, yeah, in relation to we were known as an agricultural tourist country, but with I think we're known as an IT country now. Those jobs that it's not too long ago. It's only about 10 days ago that Trump wanted to stop all those Irish IT entrepreneurs from coming into America. So obviously the only logical answer there once again is okay, we'll set up at home, and why not be? What does the idea do? Except just send out the red carpet there for Trump not too long ago either, when he came to Clare, Shannon Airport, which obviously America owned that airport by now anyway. So we bend over backwards for American investment, but we have to invest in our own. You know, what is the problem with that? I wholeheartedly believe, and not a lot of people believe, that if you legalize the cannabis in the morning, that's €1 billion industry. You know, we could lead the way on that. 10 years' time, we'll probably be Paddy last. You know, this is happening around us. We're just being held back by conservatism and just there has to be a new way of doing business in Ireland, and something as radical as legalization of cannabis, the tourism that comes with that, regulations, all that kind of stuff. You know, I think everyone knows the ins and outs of it.
Yeah,
But
Johnny.
that's the idea.
Yeah, Johnny, it's those kind of things that I suppose like why can't we just lead in certain areas for change? You know?
And we can. We've done it before. I mean, there was a point to your point, Johnny. There was one point when Ireland was ahead of the curve in Europe when it came to internet infrastructure. I know that's hard to believe, particularly given the problems we're having tonight. But we were ahead of the curve at one point. You know, this flea on the earth's arse, and we just quickly.
The Web Summit.
Yeah, exactly.
What was that?
The Web Summit was set up here. That had to go to Lisbon.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, but Neil, what were you saying? Like 20 years ago?
Yeah, I can remember. Gosh, it's very hazy now. It's back when I was younger. I remember seeing stats on internet penetration in the country compared to other EU nations, and we were top of the list at the time. For some reason, there was something that had happened in Ennis, which springs to mind. But you're talking maybe 15 to 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. I was hoping someone else would be able to back me up and knows what I'm talking about. But I do distinctly remember there was a point we were ahead of the curve for connectivity.
Maybe somebody can write in and tell us that. Also, we're reading all your suggestions to make this a better viewing experience. To that end, we've been told to lighten it up, but apart from kind of just telling jokes, I prefer if the humor came out of the character. But anyway, so I hope the show hasn't been too dry. Johnny, you want to plug a Bill Hicks event that you're involved in? Bill Hicks is the comedian who died in the mid-90s. Fantastic, like a Lenny Bruce, but funnier.
Yeah, well, Lenny had his own issues as well, as did Bill. You know, I'm a big fan, obviously. I would consider him a torture genius almost, although he wouldn't consider himself that either. But I think he was the voice of reason. He was looking out for a voice of reason, and he didn't hear it. And so he felt that he had to do it himself. And then for me, he kind of turned that light switch on. You know, in '94, when he passed on, I actually came across Dennis Leary before Bill Hicks, would you believe? And Dennis Leary completely ripped off Hicks' material. And he was known from other comedians as well. Louis C.K., for example, Asshole, that Dennis Leary song. But anyway, I don't want to talk about Dennis Leary.
No.
Bill Hicks was a comedian, American comedian from Texas, if you can believe that, from the Bible Belt. And brought up a Baptist family, very religious, so he knew his Bible very well. But he railed against all religions. He railed against the government. And I have to remember, when he was in his prime, it was the late 80s and early 90s, pre-internet.
Yeah.
So his information was going on Chomsky. He was well read. It was a great gag. He was doing a gig in somewhere in Louisiana, and he was reading a book, and the waitress came over to him and says, "What you reading for?" He says, she didn't ask why, or what was I reading, but what was I reading for? So, you know, he was an intelligent guy. He informed himself. He had informed opinions, and he made all that serious stuff. The first Gulf War, for example, he made it serious and funny.
Johnny, you've got an event in Dublin this weekend, have you?
That's right, yeah. Next Tuesday, we have the fourth public members bill, because we had 3 already. We had the first one on his 20th anniversary of his passing, and we've got a serious array of talented people, from comedians to songwriters, activists. We have a panel discussion about his career and legacy, and we're taking questions from the floor, and his brother Steve is going to do a live Skype chat from his home in Dallas. So it's going to be a 3-hour extravaganza. We're prepared to go ballistic, calling out all Hicksters. And it's €12 in, and all the proceeds, because he was so anti-capitalist. He obviously agreed everyone needs to make money, deserves to live, but he wasn't all about making money, you know. He so obviously we can't capitalize on it. So he has a foundation, the Bill Hicks Wildlife Foundation, which has saved the animals and that. So all proceeds will go towards that foundation. We also have an artist doing a live portrait, and we raffle that, and that the raffle proceeds will go to the Wildlife Foundation as well. So it's going to be a great night. John, thanks for the plug. And it's in the Grand Social on Tuesday at 8 p.m. You can get your tickets on tickets.ie. There'll probably be a few on the door if you're lucky, but I'd go out and get them now. It's going to be a great night. And we're going to bring that energy of Bill into the room. He has many quotes. One quote that I want to throw out to the people, and I've asked the contributors and the artists involved in the night. This is a favorite quote of mine at the moment. Listen, the next revolution will be a revolution of ideas. So I'm hoping that there will be like this, like what we have here tonight. Open-minded people making open-minded ideas about the future, and that's what Bill Hicks is all about. And it's amazing as he goes each year. John, I had a conversation with his brother Steve there the other day, and his anniversary is actually on the 26th of this month. So we're having it next Tuesday, 28th. But he says year by year, it's amazing how popular Bill Hicks is becoming. So his legacy is absolutely growing, and he's an amazing guy for an awful lot of people.
Certainly ahead of his time. One of those guys who you think, you know, it's such a pity they missed the internet. You know?
Yeah.
They would absolutely love it.
Can I ask the panel a question, actually, just piggybacking, just something you said, Johnny, came to mind there, on the topic of comedy, because, you know, there was a point in Ireland's history where the comedians were the voice of the people. You know, they were quite outspoken, and, you know, we remember Dermot Morgan and the likes, and Bill Hicks obviously internationally was one of those voices as well. But if I was to ask the panel, which comedians, be they Irish or international nowadays, kind of would fill that void in the modern climate? Who springs to mind? Who would be your comedian of choice?
Rubber Bandits.
That's a good question, Neil.
What did you say, Olga?
David McSavage.
David McSavage, yeah. David McSavage. Yeah. Carolyn?
Yeah, I'm gonna steal Marcel's answer and go with the Rubber Bandits as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on
pretty astute. And
yeah.
Mike?
I'm going to go with the millennial stereotype, the Rubber Bandits. Blind Boy in particular, the voice of a generation, and somebody, the only man that could be taken completely seriously on national television with its vested interests in various factions while wearing an adapted rubber bag or plastic bag on his face.
Well, you never know. I mean, next week we could have you with your own spar bag, Mike, if you like.
The Rubber Bandits then of double booking people for multiple things, and who's to know, because everyone's under a mask, you know?
I think McSavage and Tommy Tiernan and the Rubber Bandits, but McSavage, I thought when I saw his show the first time, the Savage Eye, was like so cathartic. It was a comedy exorcism almost, you know. Just thank God somebody is as angry as I am, or
I had that conversation actually. It was a good question, Neil, with a few good friends recently, and we looked at 50 years' time what Irish comedians are going to be remembered. And I think what Dave McSavage did with the Savage Eye, it really did cast a savage eye over that period when we were imploding after the crash and looking for the voice of reason, if you can call it again, and just really getting the microscope underneath Irish culture.
Yeah.
He just nailed time and time again. Tommy Tiernan in '95, his first RT late performance, when he talked about Jesus on the cross, that was actually really groundbreaking at the time. Broke the taboo there. Tommy is obviously hot and cold down through the years, but he's a raw talent. There's no doubt about it. Rubber Bandits, they're on the scene a very short time, and they're amazing. I know the guys personally, and they're really sound heads, very serious about the art of comedy, and that's what it is. Comedy is a serious art. If you look at even Mario on Today FM in the Every Breakfast Show, Oliver Callan, great satirist. You know, so we on Neil's point, we have a great history of satirists and comedy in Ireland, and when it's put into an art form and you're given that little bit of sugar to make the medicine go down, it's probably more powerful than most politicians can ever be.
On that note, Johnny, I think we're going to leave it tonight. It's 1:45 on Friday. We have an expat special of Broadsheet on the Telly on March the 16th. If you're from abroad or living abroad and you want to take part, please just contact us on broadsheet@broadsheet.ie. From everybody at Broadsheet, myself, Niall Murphy, Olga Cronin, Aaron McAlorum, all of us, we'd like to thank you, and I'd like to thank Mike McGrath-Bryan, Johnny Keenan, Marcel Kruger, Neil Curran, Olga Cronin, Caroline McAvoy. I'd like to thank Conor McKeown, our Dreamboat panelist who's disappeared, and Brady, who couldn't make it this week, who'll probably join us next week. And I hope I haven't forgotten anybody. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you.
Thanks. See you.
Bye.
Bye.